Have you ever seen a speaker use what I like to call the show up and throw up on their slides? They literally try to put everything they're going to say on their slides. And then, worse yet, and this is my absolute biggest pet peeve, they try reading the slides. They turn their back and read the slides to us. I just absolutely can't stand it. This webcast, visual storytelling, is going to help us overcome that. We're going to learn how to turn our slides, our visuals, into a story so that we're not sitting up and reading a slide to our audience, but instead we're telling them a story that at the end has a great point that we're able to drive home. Really excited to be here, joined by my coworker, Todd Zwisler. I'm dialing in from Austin, Texas. I'll be a little more specific, Georgetown, Texas, just outside of Austin. Todd, let me have you introduce yourself.
Hey, welcome everybody. I, like Kevin said, am Todd Zwisler. One of my favorite quotes when it comes to communication is from Lee Iacocca, a titan in the automotive industry. And he says, you can have the most brilliant ideas, the best strategies, but if you can't clearly communicate them, they will get you nowhere. And so, team, I'm excited to help Kevin in this endeavor over the next hour for us to be able to clearly communicate our thoughts over our visual aids. So, thank you guys for joining in and sharing with us on that. You can hit up both of us and connect with both of us on LinkedIn so we can stay connected when the webinar is over. All right, so hey,
You got it. And I want to say welcome to some of our special guests. We had over 150 people register for this webcast, and I couldn't go through every one of the companies, but somebody who had multiple people register, I wanted to say thanks to those organizations. I've got their logos here on the screen. Charter Communications, USAA, Centerpoint, Lockheed Martin, University of Texas Tech, Accruent, Bimbo Bakeries, their corporate headquarters in Philadelphia, Essity, Dell, Emerson, Cardinal Health, just to name a few. We have over 150 people joining us, and thank you. Welcome to the webcast. We've got a lot of fun planned. Todd, tell us about the fun we got planned.
yeah, so team, as we go through this workshop, you guys are already doing a great job in the chat panel and giving us that feedback. In fact, just to see some of the feedback, Jesse, I see what you just typed in and seeing the rest of you guys that the audio is not working very well. So please keep that feedback coming in through. Turn off the webcam for now. Maybe that'll help the audio connection. So, hey, let us know with the video cameras being off, does that help the audio at all? Did it get any clearer? Okay, Susan, well, thank you for the bad news, Susan. Team, also in the chat panel, you guys can ask any questions throughout this and give feedback along the way. We will be looking forward to that as well. So keep using that chat panel. You guys are great. If you do have any questions about other things that we teach at iSpeak or just things within this webinar, keep using that. Now, just a quick share of where everyone is calling in from. Just to take a look, we've got some folks from really all over the world. We've got Panama, we've got Texas, San Antonio, Austin, Ocala, Florida. Hey, welcome there, Daniel. I'm from Clearwater, Florida, so good to see you there. Got some folks from Round Rock, and Leander, Missouri, South Carolina. This is really, really cool. So thank you guys. We were very fortunate to have people from all over the world join us for this. If you are still having some connection issues, one thing that I can mention, if you have Skype open, you can shut down Skype for just a few moments. I know that will help, as well as Kevin and I reduce some of the things pulling our bandwidth as well. Well, hey, so what we have going on in this meeting, in this webcast, we're going to be taking a look at some visual mistakes that we have seen and that we need to stay away from. So that's going to be where we want to hear from you guys, you helping us out. What are all those bad things that we've seen? We're going to get into that in just a moment. Then we're going to get into presentation artifacts. I like to look at it as what are you leaving behind? What are you giving to them to reference later? Kind of like what Indiana Jones would find, but from your meeting. So we're going to look into artifacts, and then we're going to get into our PowerPoint tips, tricks, slide design principles, and strategies. Kevin's going to help walk us through some of these really great principles and strategies, and you're going to get a chance to see Kevin share us his screen and show us real time what it is that you can do to make your slides even better with the tips that we have for you guys. So that's what we have coming up. As we go through this agenda, again, if you need anything, chat panel, you guys are doing great. And Susan, again, thank you for the feedback. Carrie, thank you for that feedback as well. So, team, as we move forward, let's get into the first topic, and that's what are all the bad things you guys have seen in some of your meetings, on some different webinars, in maybe a keynote speech? What are some real bad visual mistakes that you've seen other speakers do with their visual aids? And think it could be a conference call, it could be a team meeting, it can be a formal presentation. What's all the bad stuff you've seen? And Kevin, since I've seen you got unmuted there, why don't you help us out? See what we're typing in here.
Yeah, we're seeing Kelly jump in right away with slide humans. I love that, Kelly. The phrase that comes from Gar Reynolds. If you're not familiar with that term, slide human, he says that people take their slides, PowerPoint slides, and they take their Word documents and they blend them and create this new word called slide humans. I really, really like that term. Too much text, small fonts, bad fonts, too many words. Laurel said all the information. Don't you just love it when somebody does that? Too much, not enough white space. Weird fonts, misspelled words. Oh my gosh, yes. I got a couple of weeks ago. I was in church and the words were up on the screen and we're singing along, and there was a misspelled word on one of the songs, and I stopped singing for just a quick second. I can't sing, by the way, but I stopped singing and I was like, "That's weird. There's a misspelled word on the screen," and I stopped singing and got lost for a moment because of the misspelled word. And we do this in business presentations as well. Ed talked about multiple fonts too, where people start mixing and matching, and there's no consistency. Todd, what about this slide? Talk about this one for just a second, because this is the one we see so often.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you were saying about going to church. I've sat in meetings and watched someone read out loud. People tend to put every word they're going to say on their PowerPoint slides. This does eliminate your need to memorize your presentation, but ultimately you're going to go off script and make a mistake, and everybody is going to catch you. All right, did you guys see the catch there? Yeah, we leave off in the middle, and then we try to come back, and like
I
Kevin
love it.
said, now we're thrown for a loop. I also remember sitting in that meeting at my previous employer, raise his hand, go, "Are you going to read us that screen?" Like, yeah, yeah, I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, I've got somewhere I need to be. Email that to me. I'm out. And the guy just got up and left. It's a whole lot. Yep, it's a whole lot. And then I see you guys a lot of just the too much in general. All like Kevin said, Laurel had mentioned all the information. What about our good old friend, the process map? When we see something like that, it's right here on the screen and I can't even read this. It is way too small all over the place. And what if there were a bunch of acronyms all over the place? And have you ever noticed, and thank you, Susan, have you ever noticed how a lot of the acronyms, there are different departments within our own company who use the same acronym for different words? It's crazy. All right, so looking in here, all of the visual mistakes, these are all the things I take a look at. These are the things we know we should not be doing, we just forget sometimes. And so our goal of this webcast are what are some of those ideas that we can make it easier for us to stay away from doing all of these terrible things that I know you guys are feeling a certain way. And so team, as we get into now moving from where should we stop going? What should we stop doing? We now need to get into our first major topic of what we can do better, and that's going to be presentation artifacts. And so I'm going to let Kevin get us started with presentation artifacts. This is I like to think of it as the Indiana Jones of what we do in a communication world. And so for presentation artifacts, here I'll get them started. It's the what are you looking to leave behind? When we have too much information, we have too much going, what are you trying to do with your leave behinds? And so Kevin, what are the three things that we can do?
Yeah, John, John, we'll try to leave our video off if that's going to help. He says the sound's better without our video, so we'll try that for here for a little bit. Yeah, Todd, three things that we need to do when people say, "Can I get a copy of your slides?" So we feel like we have to put everything we're going to do on a slide because that becomes the artifact, that becomes the takeaway. And so if we think about things we can do, the first thing would be provide your audience with a handout. Give them something that they can reference back to, and that could be something you email, a PDF, a Word document, the spreadsheet. It's something that you're emailing out ahead of time or after. It could be something that you brought printed that people are able to look at. So option number one, give them something that they can put their hands on or be able to reference back to. That one doesn't always work for business presentations, so we got to give you a couple of options. Option number two is use a hidden slide for the additional data. Now, let me clarify this, hidden slide versus backup slides. I know backup slides all the time, people use them, put it in the backup, put it in the backup. And to me, it gets a little confusing when somebody's got 10 slides in their deck and they've got 5 or 6 backup slides, and I'm trying to connect the dots. What's the backup slide backing up? And then I have to start trying to connect the dots. And when it becomes too difficult, when I have to work too hard as an audience member, I just stop. So what I recommend when the slide is backing up a slide in our deck is put it as a hidden slide right next to the slide that's in the deck. And so here's an example on the screen. The slide you present on the left, the slide with more data on the right. Now, the slide on the right would be hidden. The audience would never see this. So Todd, what I want to do really quick is demonstrate this. And I'm going to bring up my screen for people to see exactly this deck. I have this deck open on my screen. So I'm going to share it very quickly so that everybody can see exactly what I'm doing. Maybe, maybe not.
Yes. Yeah, and while you're getting that started, this is one of those tips that I've used quite a bit when I've got a lot of that backup data. And if I want to access it in the meeting very quickly, I'm able to access it in the meeting very quickly because, like you said, it's on that slide right after. But also, I like to look at using hidden slides if I need to print my slide deck out as an artifact afterwards, or if I have to email my slide deck to someone who missed the meeting, instead of putting all of the backup information at the end of the slide deck, now it reads a lot better like a book, or here's the slide and here are some footnotes that you need right afterwards. So it contains all the information together. So your reader, after the meeting, if you send your slide deck out, they're not having to flip back and forth and back and forth. And Kevin, this is a quote that I heard from you one time. This was 6 years ago. The easier you make it on your audience, the more likely they'll do what you want them to do. The harder you make it, the faster they quit. So let's stop making it hard. Now, Kevin, we can see your screen very clearly there.
Good. Well, let's look at it. So slide number 13, and yes, we have seen 13 slides so far in this deck, is the one that we just showed you. I hid slide 14 and 15. And again, for those that might be unfamiliar with this, all I did was go into slide sorter view. I right click on the slide, which pops up this menu, and here's the option that says hide slide. And it's a toggle switch where you can hide it and then unhide it. When I'm in presentation mode and I'm presenting my slides, it would skip the hidden slides. When I save it and email that deck out after my presentation, the audience has access to those and they'll be able to see the hidden slides within my deck. They'll also print if I choose to have my hidden slides print. And so this is option number two. Number one, give your audience a handout. Number two, put that additional data on a hidden slide. So let me make it full screen. on slide number 14, here's the slide I would present, the corporate ovation presentation process. This is my presentation slide. The slide right after it would be the hidden slide that has all the details that I would not want to show to the audience, but have available to the audience. And so I wanted to just kind of show how that works. I can also go up to the slideshow menu, and I'm doing it here on the screen. And here's a button that has hide slide. And this is another option to hide or unhide the slides within your deck. So I am going to stop sharing my screen at this point, and I'm going to come back and we're going to continue with the presentation. And so option number one, get my handout. Option number two, put it on a hidden slide. And again, if it makes sense, we could use the backup slide. Option number three is put it down the notes. And this is where you can pull that bar up on the bottom of the screen and put all the notes. So you see a screenshot. It's a screenshot here of where the notes would go. You wouldn't present it like this. I'm just showing it how it looks, to where you put all those notes down there, and now your audience has access to that, all the details that go with that slide. What I really like about this particular option is the idea that when I go to print my slides, you can print your speaker notes. And you can create a great handout, because what it does is it puts the slide on the top of the page, as you see here on the example, with all the notes on the bottom of the page. So if you've got 10 slides in your deck and you want to print out those 10 slides for your audience, you could print them using the speaker notes view, and they see the slide that you presented with the notes that go with each slide. I think that makes it great.
Yeah.
So why we had to cover this first is so many people are worried about wanting their audience to have a copy of their data, the artifact that lives on beyond the presentation. How do I make sure they get all of that afterwards? Then we can do these three different options here.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that last one, I will say, if you guys are ever having to make a deck for somebody else, I had to do this at my previous employer, where I had to make a deck for the head of HR to go present it to his peers, the CEO, OO, FO, all the C's, on a new leadership program that we were making. And I ended up making him look like the hero, because he had a copy of the PowerPoint deck printed in speaker notes, and then he showed the PowerPoint file, and there was never this, I'm reading off of the screen, I don't know where I'm going. Being able to make it for somebody else, give them the speaker notes, you make somebody else look like a hero, and that's a great way to create champions within your organization. So we start there. So when we do have all, like Kevin said, all that information, we have some place to put it. What we're going to get into next, this is my favorite question, team. My favorite question in this entire webinar and this entire class. What's the point? When you look at your slide deck, when you look at your slide or the information on it, not only is this the question we can ask ourselves, but I guarantee you this is the question that your audience is going to be asking also. So what we're going to be looking to here is now start removing something. Now we have a video that we're going to try to show you guys, and hopefully I know the webcam wasn't working as well. So here, hopefully the video will work a little bit better for you guys. And in this video, there's going to be one main thing that we need to get rid of and we need to stop doing. And I'll see if you guys can tell me in the chat panel, what is it that we need to remove to be able to keep our audience's attention focused a little bit better. So let's give this a shot.
So tell me about yourself.
Well, you know, an organized person, somebody who does not leave details out. I'm actually very, very good with groups. Group work. I've surpassed all my goals in my previous position, my prior job, and your competitor. My personnel under me have surpassed their own goals.
Oh. Get famous at my talking stain.
All right. Yes, you guys got it. So Hal, I know you're a repeat offender with a lot of the webcasts and class that we do, and so I know you've seen this one. Yeah, we got to remove those stains. And then what do we mean by stains? You got it. It is the distractions. We've got to get rid of the distractions is where we need to be able to get rid of here. All right, video played clearly. Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, so team, we need to be able to get rid of those distractions. What we need to do is help our audience focus. What we need to do is think about what's the point on this slide. What am I going to be sharing to my audience? And what's the point? What can I do to help them focus on what that point is? So let's bring back our old friend, the process map. Yay! So we get a process map like this, but we know we've been to plenty of meetings where it's, hey, I got to show you the whole map because either my boss said so or I want us to have a good frame of reference, but we're really only going to talk about these 5 things. Can any of you see where the client relationship workshop is? No, the answer is no, you cannot. So don't worry about trying. But if we start taking a look at this principle of helping us focus, one thing that we can do when we have to show a slide like this, you have to, there's no control. You can help your audience focus in on where are we going? What is it that we are supposed to be doing to be able to focus in a little bit better? So you can see I put up this little red circle just to get your eyes to start going someplace. And then here's the next trick that I'll do. I'm going to blow it up. I'm going to make it bigger. And so I'm going to go backwards for just a quick moment so you can see how this would sound in an actual webinar in your company or in a stand-up meeting. Team, thank you for being here today. In our meeting, we are going to be covering our client processes. Now, first off, we're going to be talking about our client relationship workshop. You can see down in the bottom corner here, which are these 5 things. And we're going to walk through all 5 of these. And then let's say you wanted to keep going. All right, team, well, the second half of this workshop, we're going to talk about the audit process. And then you could, second verse, same as the first, keep that moving on. Well, what this will allow us to do is keep our audience's mind focused so they're working a little bit more effectively and efficiently. So we've got another really great example that I'm going to let my counterpart take over because this is his most favorite one. So if we had to look at a QBR, Kevin, what would we do with a quarterly business review? And Kevin, you're still on mute, my friend.
So you just missed gold nuggets right there. That while I was on mute, gold nuggets you missed. I can't repeat it because it was too good. We all have seen the quarterly business review slides like this one. This is a made-up slide based on some real information from one of our clients, but it's not real data. And you sit there and you get overwhelmed. There's too much stuff going on. So another way, what Todd showed us was how to focus the audience in one area and then dive into it. Sometimes we're really restricted. Sometimes it's a manager who says, no, you can only use one slide, and we've got to do all of it on one. What I'm about to do on this example is I'm going to use the white transparent box to cover up a section and then focus my audience in one area. So here I'm covering up the action plan, the drivers, the priorities, and the commitment, and the audience is focused on the chart that's in the performance area. So I really like this opportunity for me to focus the audience. Then as I go to another section like the action plan, I can focus my audience in that area and continue through the QBR. And I don't have one for each of these, but you get the idea. So let me quickly demonstrate this because this is one of my favorite techniques that I'll use in slides, and it's super simple. Todd's putting some of the instructions there in the chat window because it's a simple drawing of a shape, adjusting the transparency, and then using the animations. I'm going to animate it on click. And so these are some of the features that I'll use. I will use this particular technique on just about every deck that I present. And so next I want to show that, and I want to share my screen again and show you how that works. All right, so we're back over here. I'm going to start up here in this slide where we were, and I'm going to delete what I created. And so this is the QBR slide without any transparency on it. Very, very simple to do. I'm going to go up to insert. I'm going to assume some of this is basic, so I won't go really slow on this part, but I'm going to insert a shape. and I'm going to insert a rectangle. And I'm going to draw a rectangle over what I don't want my audience to see. Now, whatever your colors default to, mine default to blue, I'm simply going to go up, change the shape fill to white. I'm going to make sure there's no outline on that shape so that it's just a white box. If I were to click off, it's just a solid white. I like the transparency because what it says to my audience is there is something behind it. It's not just being covered up. You can see through, but it's covered up enough to where you can't focus on it. And so I'm going to click on that white box, right click and bring up this long menu of all these options. And down towards the bottom, it says Format Shape. So again, I'm right clicking on the shape, go to Format Shape. That's going to open up over here on the right side of my screen. It says, what do you want to format? I'm going to expand the fill section. And this is where you find transparency. Now, I've kind of played with this before. You can either type a number there or you can drag that little bar over. But I find somewhere around 20% seems to be a good percentage. So I can just type 20 and hit enter to fade it out enough to where the audience isn't focused. So that's option number one, create the box, make it about 20% transparent. And then here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to take that box and I'm going to duplicate it. And Todd, you can type the keystrokes in the chat window. To duplicate an object, and this works in Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, you use the keystroke Control D. Now, I know a lot of people do Control C, Control V, does the same thing for the most part. Control D duplicates this object. I'm going to drag that new white transparency that I just duplicated down to the bottom section, drag it, if I can do that, drag it across, and I've just created two white boxes that are covering up everything that I don't want my audience to look at. Last step, I'm going to click on the first box, hold down Control, click on the second box, and then I'm going up to the Animations menu, and I'm going to have those fade in. I'm going to click Fade, and they're going to fade in on click. So when I click to have those hide, the audience's focus will go to that performance section. So that's how that works. Again, what I'm going to do here is stop sharing my screen. We're going to come back into this window, and I'm going to show you what that looks like one more time. So Terry, you're liking this option? She said, love this. So let me back up. So this is what it looked like. This is the original screen that we had all the QBR steps. When I built that and used the animation, this is what it would look like to the audience. And so there's not a deck that I create, that I present, that I'm not using this feature in certain places. You'll see us use it in some others throughout today. And so these are some of the things that we use. I love the focus of this for the audience. And it's just a great way for us to be able to keep the audience looking where we want them to look. And so that section, we call it focus, how to focus the audience. Todd showed you how to focus in one particular area. I showed you how to cover up an area, and both of those used the white transparency. This next section is simplify, how to make our slides simpler. And so many times we see these show up and throw up slides, how I opened today's session. All of the data on one screen. And what we want to show you, and Todd and I are going to walk you through this, is how to take this slide, and we're going to show you 5 different ways to simplify this slide. 5 different ways. So let's start with the first one.
Yeah, all right. So hey, the first one, the way that we look at, I'm going to back up. The way we look at this is one of those too much text on the screen, too much here. I can read this. Just email this to me. If you really think about what's the point, remember, that's my favorite question. What's the point? Well, the point is I just need to have these 4 topics on the screen to keep everybody on the same page and on track with where we're going. I'm going to tell them all of that little detail along the way. There's no reason for me to type it all and have you read it and then check out. So I like this not only from a simplicity standpoint where we want to read it a little bit more because it's simple, but it's also a great way to help them focus on where we at and what we're talking about in this moment. We've got some other examples of that coming up. So this is a classic. It's the bullet. Everybody likes the bullet, and nothing wrong with the bullet approach. Now, if you want to do something a little bit different than the bullet, well, then we can go to the next one. Instead of doing it like vertically, you can just decide to go horizontally. And so one great thing that you'll be able to do is just go from left to right. This is how we read, and even throw in a picture to it. Now our minds start to go a little bit further. So instead of just doing the whole bullet look, we can go left to right, add a picture, and look, it's still so simple and keeps me focused on where we're going next. So Kevin,
Todd,
if I
yeah, Todd,
wanted
you
to
said that
do,
everybody loves bullets,
something
and I'm going
similar,
to disagree. I'm going to disagree. I think we see this so much. I'm tired of seeing bullets. And
yeah.
so instead of having these traditional slides that we see 1,000 times a day, and again, we're not saying they're wrong by any means. I'm just saying I see them 1,000 times a day in every presentation. That by making the change you just showed, by putting pictures going across horizontal versus having bullets going vertical, just changes the way the audience looks. And when you bring in that visual factor by having these great icons, I think it's so much more appealing for the audience. And so I love that you went from these first versions. So we go from the busy slide, which is not one of them. So we go simply bulleted. You showed us number 2, putting some icons there. So keep going. We said there were 5. Keep going, but I love the direction you're headed.
Yeah, if I were to say, Kevin's not a huge fan of the bullets. He says not that it's wrong, just not a huge fan of the bullets. If there's something that we want to do that's similar but different, that's what I like to call this one. It's the similar but different. It's a way that really is able to grab our audience attention a little bit because it's different. We see these shapes and we see the words inside the shapes. Yeah, same but different. And then we still get to add the icons to it a little bit more. So here's one that I know Kevin may not fully be in tune to because I know I'm just kidding. But this one, it grabs our attention because it is different and our audience still know where to go. Now, if you were a fan of the left to right, one way that you could approach going from left to right again is you can now add a little bit of depth and dimension to it. So instead of just having the text on the white background and the icon, you can put the icons in some circles to give it a little bit of different feel, still do the left to right, but you can put them on top of some shapes. And so now this one, yeah, this one feels a little bit more professional. It's probably because of the gray tones. I think it's very tech. It's very sleek with those gray tones. It feels more professional because there are these 4 clear avenues that we are going to discuss in this meeting, again, without keeping everything on it. So, Kevin, if you were going to be radical, and let's say there's one more that we want to show them and just go really radical, what would you do?
We could put no text on the screen and just tell a story. Back to visual storytelling, which is the name of our webcast. And again, we would use animation and builds to do this, but I would bring up the customer in the middle of the screen first and say, this is our customer. And and then the phone would appear. She can pick up the phone and call us. And then you click, and then she can get on the web and interact with us on the website. She will get free delivery. She can work with an award-winning company, which are the 4 things that we've been covering in those other slides. And so kind of recapping this, we go from bulleted list number 1, pictures and icons going across horizontally number 2, the stacking technique number 3, the horizontal stacking technique number 4, and then no text number 5. And so we're just trying to give you guys some options, some different ways of approaching this. So I want to get your thoughts. What do you guys think? Let's hear from you in the chat window. What do you think of these 5? Not to necessarily say you have a favorite, and you might, and that's totally great. But that's the subjective part of this, which is, which one do you like? Well, I like number 2, or I like number 5. And for me as a speaker and trainer, as Todd and I both do at iSpeak, we want to make sure that I like the slide that I'm presenting. It has to be simple, has to be clean, has to be clear, but most importantly, has to be effective. And the effectiveness is going to come down to a couple of pieces. Number 1 is going to be, what's the point I'm trying to make? Go back to the slide Todd showed you earlier. And number 2, who's the audience that I'm presenting it to? Ooh, Kelly, you just said a good one right there. She just said, I think it will depend on your audience, because certain audiences want or expect certain things. And know your audience enough to say, you know what, this particular audience wants all of the information on a slide, and sometimes that may go against everything I think when I want to design a slide and tell my story, but the audience wins, and I'm going to give the audience what they want.
Yeah, and I think what Michelle is bringing up right there, Michelle, I know the organization that you work with and work for, and you're right. You guys do a fantastic job with some of the pictures that I like how you said really generate a feeling. And that's absolutely awesome when we can get that feeling put into it. But the challenge, and not just with Michelle's team, but with teams all over the world that we work with, the challenge is let's just fit it all on one slide. Hey, give me the one slider, put everything on there. And don't you guys think it's funny that we're driving a culture of putting everything on one slide, yet the first activity we do in this class is what do we hate about slides? And it's everything is on one slide. So Michelle, love that you're bringing it up. Team, these are just a few options that you guys can do. Love seeing the, like Kevin said, subjectivity within this. But now as you start to take a look at what we're doing here, this is going to be my next question. How many slides? If we're not putting it all on one and we're simplifying them, well, how many slides should we have? You know, Kevin, I have my thoughts. What's your answer?
I
Oh,
know,
you jokester.
I know. I'm going to say 42. 42 is the answer.
It is the most indefinite answer to life, universe, and everything that is meaning. So that's a good guess.
Are y'all familiar with the term 42? Al called us nerds.
Hey, took 7.5 million years to be able to create that answer. It's got to be a good one. So, team, before I give you my favorite, you just saw Kevin's favorite answer. You can tell who's the funny guy at iSpeak. There is a guideline that you can use. Now, there was a guy by the name of Guy who came up with his rule of PowerPoint. Now, I look at this as more of a guideline instead of a hard and fast rule. There is one of these three numbers that I do stand by pretty hard. So what Guy Kawasaki is saying is for every 20 minutes worth of meeting time or speaking time, you should have somewhere around 10 slides, like up to 10 slides, and no less than 30-point font. I know that number, every time I say it in class, blows some minds. No less than 30-point font. I 100% agree with that. I love that. Because if we start fitting too much, then the font gets too small, and not all of us have those young people eyes that can see so well these days. So, this is a really great starting place. I think that this is good for us from a guardrails standpoint. Team, I'm going to give you my favorite answer, and it is also my favorite HR answer. But before I give it to you, can anybody guess what my favorite answer? How many slides? So it's answering this, not that, this question. How many slides should we have? It just so coincidentally also is my favorite HR answer. Yes, Ed, my man. It depends. You got it, Ed. It depends. Yeah, it definitely, Kelly, you said it. It depends on the information. Well, Kelly, to your earlier point, it depends on the audience. It depends on what I'm trying to achieve. It depends, like Kevin said, the effectiveness of the slide. Let me show you one example before we get into some other examples. Here's what I mean by it depends. What we know we don't like is going to be something similar to this. That's how I stay PC. Not this, but similar to this. Now, this would be great for an artifact, right? This would make a great artifact. It's got a picture, it's got all the relevant information. This is wonderful. But if we show this in a meeting, we're going to turn somebody off. They're going to say, I can read that in an email. See you later. I'm playing Candy Crush. So here's something that we can do. Let's just take a look at what we've already learned in this webcast so far of focus and simplicity. So first and foremost, hey, here's the new Precision workstation. It's the world's most powerful workstation. Boom, there we go. Now as we look into some of that simplicity and focus, look at how simple the slide is. Now also, where do I want you to focus? I want you to focus that this world's most powerful workstation has up to 8 cores. And I'm going to let Kevin keep typing in the chat panel there about the Dell stuff. 8 cores. Next slide. Quadro, NVIDIA, GPU. Next slide. All the RAM. You can have all of the RAM and all of the memory you could ever want, hope, and dream of. And so, team, how many slides does this feel like? You guys tell me in the chat panel. How many slides does it feel like? And I'll start at the beginning again. So here's this one. It's got up to 8 cores. It's got this amazing Quadro RTX GPU. It's got up to 128 gigs of RAM and up to 8 terabyte hard drive. So how many does it feel like? You guys have got it. 1 or 2. 2 if you count the title slide, 1 if you count this. But in reality, we all know this is 1 slide, this is 1 slide. It's 4 slides, or 5 if you count the title. So that's why I love the answer, it depends. Now, just to look at a couple other examples, I know Kevin's put together a couple other examples that he really likes to show as well. And there's one that we have a hard time working with quite frequently, and it's something like this. And Kevin, what would you do with something like this?
Yeah, there's a lot of options that we could go with. Again, going back to the example earlier when we saw that there were 5 different ways of redesigning that wall of text, there were so many different things that we could do here. One very simple, super easy way was to simply draw a box on the screen, duplicate it, and then put some icons in it. Now some would push back immediately and say, well, this is too simple. There was text on the previous slide. I'll go back to it. And maybe I need to drive home those 3 areas about simplifies, reduces, and accelerates, that maybe I need to drive those home. And so here's an idea. We take what feels like a menu and we drop it down. Now, I want to show this live because I'm using a brand new, if you're using Office 365, I've got PowerPoint 365, there's a new animation, actually a new transition called Morph. And in the Morph version, and I want to go back and I want to show you I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen and I am going to go into presentation mode. Give me a second here. I want to go back to this slide and then I'll show you the other. Here's Morph. It's the Morph transition going from this title slide that's got some great pop in it. Watch what it does. It moves the text over and shrinks the laptop. I hope that comes across clearly here on the webcast. So that was one of the options there of what Morph does. Let me back up. I'll do it one more time. So this is what Morph is. Going from the title slide to the second slide, it was just simply a Morph transition that takes my audience's focus to where I want. Now let me show you what this looks like on this screen. And this is where it's got that menu feel to it. The Morph transition's kind of building that menu out. And as I go to the second one shrinks and one grows. And again, know your audience. If this works, if you're presenting up to executives, I can absolutely tell you executives don't want cute. They want the information. Give me the facts, keep it simple, and let's not get too cute about it. And so this might be too cute for an executive presentation, but I think it's a fabulous presentation if you're presenting to an external customer or you're presenting internally to a sales group or to a marketing group who would appreciate the creativity that you would put into this. And so let me show you the Morph. So all you do, and this is so simple. I'm going to go to the slide sorter for a second and show you these slides. So slide 47, 48, 49, and 50. And again, yes, we have seen 50 slides so far today. Those are the slides we're talking about. I clicked on slide number 48. I went up to my menu, and you can see I'm on the menu up here where it says transitions, and I just simply chose Morph. Now, if I had it fade, it would fade in, but the Morph makes it grow. It's actually changing, taking the shape and changing it into the shape on the next slide, which I think is really effective. So one of my favorite transitions that I wanted to make sure that we were able to talk about as well. So again, going to stop sharing my screen. We're head back into the window. Any questions? Oh, Amanda said mind blown. Awesome. I just think that was very cool. So Candace, good question. When using the Morph, does it create additional slides? Yes, you'll have additional slides. So what I'll do is exactly what you said in the chat. Do you have to remove them before distributing your presentation? Yes. So what I would distribute would be different than what I am presenting. And Todd, I see you already did that. You already answered the question in the chat. Let's do another one. Another plug for Dell. This one was Dell has a recycle program for schools. So this is their higher ed program where a school will buy thousands of Dell laptops or thousands of Dell desktops, and they've got all these empty boxes at the beginning of a school year. And so this was the original slide. You'll see in the upper right corner, it says before. And so we challenged the group to say, let's make this pop. Let's really make it stand out. And so we said, if we want to have the picture, and here we go again, we're going to show the picture. And I use the exact same title from their slide because it's the subtitle says, "Who knew that trash could literally fill a school?" We use that title. You'll notice that I made it blue transparent. So, because if I tried to put the black text on top of the boxes or white text on top of the boxes, it didn't stand out. It kind of got lost in the picture. And so having that blue transparency around it made it pop a little bit. Now, again, you're not able to see the morph transition, but I morph it to the upper right corner, getting it out of the way. People have a great visual now of what their cafeteria or gymnasium would look like filled with boxes. And then one at a time, they can bring up those 4 key points of what the recycle program looks like. Again, using that transparency of the gray transparency for people to be able to see through. And so again, I want to give you some examples. Show and tell is what we said, and we said some PowerPoint tips in here that we could also do. And so those are a couple of examples. I want to do a couple of demonstrations to go a little bit further on some of those tips and things that I hope are helpful for you. So let's move into my slide share again. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. I hope this has been helpful as we're doing this. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're back into my deck. And I'm going to use this particular slide as an example. And there's a couple of things that I want to show. So when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat window. I'm going to let Todd kind of address the chat as I go through this. A couple things that I want to share. First, I want to share the eyedropper. It's called the eyedropper. And let me explain how this works. The reason I put the iSpeak logo on this particular slide is I want to pull the orange out of the I of iSpeak, and I want to pull the blue out of the blue of the speak word, and I want to apply it to the circles that are on the screen. So here's how I do that. I'm going to click on this circle, this green circle. I'm going to go up to Shape Format, and I'm going to drop down the Shape Fill. If you're not familiar with the eyedropper, this is exactly how I use it. So I'm going to grab the eyedropper. I'm hovering over it right now. And because I have that green circle selected, and then I'm going to hover over the orange of the iSpeak eye, it shows me the RBG number there as I hover over it. When I click, that green became the orange from the iSpeak eye. I'm going to click on the second circle here, which has got this blue. And again, I'm going to do the exact same thing. This time I'm going to go to the Shape Fill, go back to the eyedropper, and this time I'm going to click on the blue of the iSpeak logo, and that now matches. There's no guessing game here. There's no trying to get the color on your screen to get close to the logo of your company. You choose the exact color using the eyedropper. On this third circle, I'm going to grab the blue that's down here on the blue bar. So I'm going to go to the eyedropper and just hover over the blue down below, and now those all match. And so love the eyedropper. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the iSpeak logo now. So that's one option. Okay, so you guys are loving this. All right, very cool. I had to click back over very quick.
Yes, definitely loving it. And Kevin, you get yourself set up for the next tip. Team, what I just typed in the chat panel, you do have to make sure that whatever logo, color, whatever you're pulling from with eyedropper has to be in PowerPoint. You can't go to Chrome in a picture of a sunset and pull from that picture. You have to put it inside PowerPoint and then pull from it, just so you guys know.
Good. Yep. So here's 2 things I want to show you, 2 more PowerPoint tips and tricks. And again, there's so much more. The approach that we have at iSpeak is that we want our webcast to be informational. This is not a sales webcast. It is an informational webcast, but that doesn't mean we can't plug our workshops. This topic, visual storytelling, is an all-day workshop. that we teach, 8-hour workshop where these students bring their laptops and hands-on, they are redesigning the decks that they present. Now, we don't teach the message in this class. We're just focused on creating great slides. We have a class called Message Builder where we help them build a message. And so this is what this class gets to do. We're showing you some of the highlights from that class here in this webcast. But 2 more tips I want to show you in PowerPoint that I really love. And one of them is this, and I want to move these pictures out of the way to show you that putting a square picture, and we see square pictures all the time, on top of these circles, I don't think necessarily looks that great. So I'm going to take the pictures and I'm going to turn the shape into the pictures. And let me show you how simple this is to do. So I'm going to click on this first lady and I'm going to cut her. Now, when you cut her, I did Control X to cut. Where does it go? When you cut or copy something, where does it go? Right now? I'm going to trust because I can't see the chat window, so I'm trusting y'all got it.
You're getting
so
a whole
it
bunch
goes
of
to your clipboard.
clipboard.
Perfect. Yep, got it. It's on your clipboard. Now, the reason I say that is because you got to know that when we see the next option. So what I'm going to do now is take this orange circle. I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to go back to Format Shape. This is where we were earlier for the transparency. But instead of choosing the transparency, I'm going to say I want to change the fill of that shape to a picture. And it defaults always to whatever your defaults are. Mine's like this yellowy pattern right there. But I choose picture, and then it says, where's the picture source? Do you want to insert it from a source, or do you want to go from your clipboard? Obviously, I now know it's on my clipboard, so I'm going to choose clipboard, and that circle turns into the lady. And I'm going to do it 2 more times because it's just very, very quick. I'm going to grab this guy in the middle. I'm going to cut him, click on the blue circle, and I'm going to paste him from my clipboard, cut the lady, do the same thing with her. And in no time, I've just turned those 3 circles into those pictures. At any time, I'm going to highlight all 3 objects at the same time. I'm using the keystroke Control A to do that, A for all. I can go up to my shape format, and I can edit the shape, and I can change it into a different shape if I wanted them to all be arrows. Now those shapes are arrows, but they're people. And if I can do some of this, again, appropriately, based on your topic, based on your audience, in certain places, I might be able to create some of that visual pop on my slides that make people remember it. One of the things that we teach at iSpeak across all of our workshops is that there's 3 phases of delivering a presentation. And that's getting the audience's attention. That's not always easy to do when we're speaking. Attention. During the presentation, we want them to have comprehension, being able to absorb what it is they're hearing and seeing. And then afterwards, having retention, being able to go back and say that I remembered it. And sometimes the visual will be the way that we're able to do that. I think I just got out of sharing my screen. I want to show one more tip before we wrap up. I want to do one more really quick. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys like that. Let me go back one more time. One more thing I want to show on this before we move on is this. I'm going to undo this and put these the circles back. And I want to mess them up for a second because I want to show you using a PowerPoint technique that I can arrange them automatically. And this will be the last PowerPoint tip before we wrap up. Again, I'm going to select all my objects. I'm going to go up to the Shape Format menu. And I'm going to choose the Align menu. And I don't know if anybody's ever spent minutes or hours trying to align things on slides. PowerPoint can do it for us in seconds. So I go to the Align menu and I say, I'm going to align these objects to my slide. So I'm going to choose to the slide. I'm going to then align them to the middle of my screen. And then I'm going to distribute them horizontally. And when I do that, in 2 clicks, those 3 pictures are now perfectly centered and perfectly distributed across the slide. And again, I'm selecting the objects, going to the shape format, and I'm using the align menu to do that. And again, we had some tips and tricks that we wanted to share with you. Those are some of my favorites. There are more. I promise you that if you were to attend our workshop. I hope that was helpful, and we're going to get back. Todd, Yeah, I was gonna say
Yes,
if you could
I
help
got
get
you,
us
buddy.
back into the
Yes,
webcast.
I'm with there. So, team, like Kevin mentioned, in the workshop, we do show a few more of the tips and tricks. We allow you to have your laptop out and practice along with us. So it's not just a here's a video, look at it, and then figure it out. That's where I figure, Jacqueline, where your question is stemming from. We do have some extra collateral we're working on to make it easier for that after the class. So, Jacqueline, thank you for that. Team, the last thing that we're going to get into now are just a couple of strategy ideas. So you've got focus and simplicity. You've got these tips and tricks to start you on this journey of making more effective visuals. But now, what can we do from a strategy standpoint? Well, three strategies. One, you can do just text. And with the just text, you're just getting the words on the screen, very much like what we had just said earlier with the simplicity. Keep it simple. Just a picture allows us to see what it is we're connecting to and connecting with. And then when you put it all together, and Kevin has an example that he wants to be able to show you guys of when you put it together or choosing one of these strategies, you're doing exactly what Kelly said earlier, thinking about what the audience needs and getting them to connect with the visual that you have for them. And that's our goal, is creating visuals that connect with our audience, not just talk at our audience.
Yeah, so as we wrap up here, we've got just a couple of minutes. I want to go to an example of visual storytelling. And I want to take an example of a credit score that we had from one of our clients. And on this credit score example, it was a very busy slide with a lot of data on it, and not a great slide because there's so much going on and it's really hard to focus on what's the point, going back to what Todd had talked about earlier. So as we sat down and coached this particular individual, we said, let's turn this into a story. And so as we turn this into a story, I want to show you exactly what that's going to look like. And if we were presenting this, this is how it sounds. I want to buy a new car, and I've always had my sights set on this beautiful yellow car. And I got a limited budget, so I went to the Ford dealership, looked at the sticker price, and it was right in my price range, $20,000. Perfect. But what I found out when I went to the dealer is that if my credit was really good, I could get a better rate, 5%. If my credit wasn't so good, I was going to get a bad rate, 10%. And the difference in my car payments, the difference of the interest was $3,010. $3,010. Good credit versus bad credit, $3,010. That's a lot of money. And I don't know about you, but if I had an extra $3,010, maybe I could go on a really nice vacation with my wife. And so thinking about how we might be able to tell the story. So that single busy bad slide that talked about a $20,000 car with a 5-year loan that shows poor credit versus good credit and the difference, and the money could be used on a vacation, could now turn into a story with our audience. And that story visually is visual storytelling, and it helps our audience really understand what it is that we were trying to convey. So as we're wrapping up, and I want to say thanks, everybody. This has been awesome. What's next? We would love, and I say we, iSpeak, would love to see you. We do this once a quarter. We have free webcasts that we deliver. The next one is coming up on April 2nd, and the title of the session is called Leader Presence. And we want to talk about how to polish your presence when you're on a conference call or in a meeting, or if you're standing up on a stage to present yourself. We'll send out the information so that you can register for that. Share that with your teams and let others be a part of these. And we've got 150 seats that are available each of these different sessions. And so we'd love to have you come to those. Thanks so much for being here. On behalf of Todd, on behalf of me, on behalf of iSpeak, y'all have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, everybody.